Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Cursed Gold event, in which the Cursed Effigy is added to the game. We also have quite a few things going on throughout this week. One thing that's pretty noteworthy to mention immediately is do not open your keys. Fist or Shade of Zorn is still in the drop table, and he's arguably the worst mythic in the entire game, and he's still around for another 4 days until the end of Thursday or Friday reset time. So, yeah, make sure not to open keys, otherwise you might get a useless Shade of Zorn. And if you already own a copy, definitely don't, because you don't want a second useless copy of Shade of Zorn. As far as Battle Crashers, these are things that occasionally happen in this game, and right now there's a Battle Crasher where we end up gaining 5 additional glory every single time we kill it. They appear a lot more often than gnomes, however they do not overwrite gnomes, so if you were normally going to get a gnome, you'll get a gnome instead of a Battle Crasher. I believe they're doing several of these throughout the week for E3, so we might have several of these going on simultaneously, or different ones, or possibly better loot ones, so keep an eye out for that throughout the week. Other than that, let's go over this troop, which is actually not horrible for once. Not just is the troop pretty decent, the trait stone it has is pretty decent too. There's a lot of stuff that use red-purple, both in early game, mid-game, and throughout, as well as a lot of mythics. As far as early game, you want to throw that mainly into Horned Asp, Cursed Effigy itself, Azurus for soul farming, Miststalker mainly for its +1 purple, Sunbird because Explore, and Wisp mainly because of its empowered, or almost empowered ability with its Dispel and Charm that it has. Other than that, later into the game, you want to go for things like Rock Troll, for the Brown Mana generation, Umbra Wolf, which generally is used for soul farming teams if you're not going to bother using Hero there, Dragon Soul for soul farming teams, Drowned Sailor just for the mana accumulation, and Fist of Zorn for the skull spam. As far as this troop itself, it is the cheapest viable curse option currently in the game. It is only an ultra rare, and of course you could obtain it right now this week for only 300 glory. It ends up exploding a gem similar to many other golems, and it curses a random enemy for every single purple gem destroyed, and then ends up gaining a bunch of armor as well as a little bit extra gold, so it can even slightly be used for gold farming, or at least a little bit extra than what you would be doing otherwise. But of course the most noteworthy thing about that is it curses an enemy per purple, so if you end up hitting 4 purples, that will guarantee curse the entire enemy team, making it the cheapest mana cost of anything that can 4 times curse at this current moment in time, as well as the cheapest viable troop that has the capability of doing 4 times curse. Curse, of course, is a mechanic that ends up disabling all immunities, so any kind of immunities that they might have, like Devour, Immunity, Impervious, stuff like that, will be removed for the duration of the curse. The other effect of curse is it makes stats effects last twice as long. Normally, there's a 10% cumulative chance that stats effects will be cleansed off every single turn, so it goes 10%, 20%, 30%, and so forth. However, when an enemy is cursed, that is halved, so it goes 5%, 10%, 15, 20, so on and so forth until they eventually get it. And reapplying curse will set that timer all the way back to 5%. Even if it was already raised 25, 30%, whatever it might have already been raised to. Other than that, similar to many other golems, it does have 50% scroll reduction, which is always nice. It also has a little bit of extra curse. Other than its ability that does it a lot, it can also curse every single time it does its skull, and as I mentioned, replacing a curse does refresh all of its stats effects back down to 5% chance to cleanse. So pretty useful, and since it's such a low mana cost, you'd be able to get a lot of curse spam off of it, and you could even synergize it with stun to disable literally every trait that they have on everything in the game except for troops that have indestructible. That's the only thing that curse nor stun would work on. But yeah, really viable troop. Highly advise getting it, both for its trait stone and for the troop itself. As far as the as far as the event keys this week, the mythic is not in this drop table, so you don't have to worry about that. So these you can actually open if you want. There are several things that are somewhat okay to get from this drop table. It is a Drock Zoom week, so as far as everything that is available from that drop key, it'll be everything currently on this page right here, except for the Duma Stone, but everything else that is on this page will be droppable if you were to go and open them. The most noteworthy things that you would end up getting from it are... also you wouldn't be able to get the Blackfire Cannon, which is for this invasion event. But the main 3 things that you would try doing this for is Glaceon, really good Doomskull Crater, as well as 65% scroll reduction. King Bloodhammer, which ends up getting a nice amount of Doomskulls as well as converting all the blues that Glaceon ends up creating. Really good synergy with each other. And it has a Summon a Doomstorm whenever an enemy dies, which is pretty decent. And this is the first time that Obsidius has been available in keys since he has been released. However, do keep in mind, this faction, like many others into the future, does have 2 mythics now. So it could be either an Obsidius or the completely useless Fallen Valdis, which is also one of the worst mythics in the game, among one of them. But this is also in the Soul Forge this week, so you can just craft it there if you do want it. So I wouldn't really bother using event keys to try to get Obsidius. However, if you don't currently have Bloodhammer Glaceon combo, it is a pretty nice combo to have, and they're also used independently of each other on some teams, depending on what you're going for. Depending on if you need a higher skull reduction, he gets used, or if you just need the Doom Skull spam, he tends to get used. But they're also decent synergy. Both those legends are highly advised to consider getting, though, as they are very, very useful. So, of course, we have invasions this week. It is restricted to constructs. However, the weapon we ended up getting, which I will be showing some teams for in a little bit, is insanely powerful. Unfortunately, there is currently no construct hero class. However, this weapon feeds mana into itself. It is a blue-purple weapon that collates purple and brown, and of course, purple is one of its colors. So it's kind of interesting to see how this pans out, because you can basically infinitely loop this thing. This will be particularly overpowered if they ever add a construct hero class or half mana start for such. However, unfortunately, neither of those two things exist at this current moment in time. So at the moment, it's just kind of average, slightly above average. But this could be a very broken weapon into the future, so highly advise getting it. If you don't get it through gems, just go and get it from the Soul Forge before the end of the week. Definitely worth getting. As far as this event, there's basically two different ways I'm going to be going with it. One is the one I'll likely be using is this one. However, I will be showing a cheaper one right after this. This is the main one that I'll be doing for most of these battles here. So basically, as you can see, it's basically just spamming all of the cannons and just going from there. Ended up buying up to tier 5, and I ended up just doing Orb to get its final ascension on it. And we ended up having extra copies because we did buy to tier 5, and now we could just use this to kill all of them. This cannon is pretty much just a standard invasion troop. The only difference is what you just saw right there. It has a 30% chance to also hit a second enemy, and that second hit does still have the boost ratio. So if that does end up hitting a tower, it will still do its 3 times, 4 times, or 5 times additional damage to that second target. But yeah, pretty easy to clear out this event. Super, super easy event. So yeah, you have that as an option. However, if you only have one cannon and you don't really have too many other options, there is a way to do this. Go bring out Dwarven Gates. You can either go 3 Dwarven Gates or go 2 Dwarven Gates with a Thorn Wall. So if we go over here, go for Thorn. Wait, do we not have Thorn Wall? Or am I just spelling it correctly? I'm almost guaranteed Thorn Wall is a construct. Hold up. Is it not? Do we have to go triple Dwarven Gate? There it goes. Why did it not come up? Oh, it's tentacle. I always think these are thorns, not tentacles. Oh well, same difference. But there we go. Put that up there, put that there. You can put this in first slot, however, it is a bit risky if you do end up doing that. I guess for just showing it right now, we will, but do keep in mind you might want to put in like third. You can even go triple Dwarven Gate if you feel like you need more protection. But this is the basic premise of the team, and you're going to want to set your banner to a +1 into one of all tentacles and +1 into Dwarven Gate. So something like, let's say, a purple-blue would be fine. You want to have +1s on them just to make sure you can get their mana up a little bit easier. Where on earth is that? Actually, you know what? Let's go for a +2 blue instead, just in case we don't get the surge there. We'll just do it that way, because we'll be getting plenty of the mana's up anyways to feed it up. Plus, we have to keep in mind we likely have potions active, or definitely, if you own this flame cannon, or the black fire cannon, you definitely have at least the enchant, so we'll be able to get that naturally. So, you know what, let's go for blue there. That should be fine. I guess we could technically even go like a brown or red. I guess whichever way you want to play it. But anyways, the general premise is use 3 of those troops that give 5 mana to all allies, followed by flame cannon either in a safe location or in first slot, depending on how you want to run it. And that's all you really need for this event, and it's pretty much as simple as that. You start getting these going, and then you have infinite mana, you have infinite barrier, you have infinite basically everything. So let's keep poking with this. It'll do the same thing like we did the last time around, and we can just keep protecting up. Again, you could use one of these in first slot to make sure that you never die. However, Dwarven Gate does barrier every single time, so using this in first would probably be fine. Though if you do want to play it safer, you'd obviously want to move that to somewhere that isn't first. But yeah, you just keep looping these, you get infinite mana from this. Keep gaining barriers so you never take damage, and it's pretty much as simple as that. Just keep casting them, and that's all you have to do. If you were to put one of these in first slots, probably want to do the Thorn thing, because as Entangle, oh, never mind, Entangle won't work on the towers, but it still has 25% Skull Reflect, which can be used to remove their barrier, and that also still reflects them even if you already have barrier on it. So it'll still reflect whatever skull damage they do, even if you currently have Dwarven Gate's barrier on it. And oops, I should have taken that skull first, but oh well. You just loop the mana one more time. And that is basically this event in a nutshell. Really simple, really cheap. If you had to, you just run 3 Dwarven Gates. They're all commons. Pretty much everyone has that. This troop costs, what, 90 gems? And that's all you need to complete out this event. If you are in early game to mid game, you probably want to put that cannon into third slot with 2 Dwarven Gates in front of it and 1 behind. That'd be the safest way to run it, since yours probably wouldn't be traded or would have lower stats. But it's as simple as that to run this event. Probably one of the easier events we have had so far. And it's good because invasion events do give a lot more rewards between all the gems here, the orb, and the standard rewards that it gives. So, yeah, should be a pretty easy event overall, and those are the main two teams that you would end up using for it. As far as other stuff throughout this week, we have no Friday event. However, as I mentioned, we should be getting Battle Crashers pretty much every single day. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that, but we definitely have at least one Battle Crasher active. Not sure if we're going to have multiple at once or better ones or what on earth they're doing. But I believe they're doing something for E3, so we'll see exactly how that pans out. As far as stuff throughout this week, on Tuesday we're going to be having Hall of Guardians event. On Wednesday we're getting a new pet, so we are getting something new this week in that regard. It's going to be for Groshnock bonus, which is pretty pointless though. But you will be able to get that. It's a nice little cute dragon. Image obviously isn't here, but you guys have probably seen it if you look over there. Thursday is Dragon Guard Hero class, which is that one Dragon Hero class. And as I mentioned, no weekend event this weekend. As far as the Soul Forge, there is one thing worth crafting this week, and that is the Mythic of Obsidius. So if you want to get your hands on him, I believe this is the first time he's been in Soul Forge since his release, so might want to consider it. He's the best stunner in the entire game, being able to stun on a single extra turn. Also pretty good in elemental teams. I personally haven't been using him too much, but he's a good utility troop to have. Not even sure if he would make top 10. It does seem like he was going to be slightly more useful, but then was kind of pretty average. But it's mostly just a utility troop that you bring out ever so occasionally in combination with elemental teams, particularly with the Mirage Queen. Other than that, nothing else really worth crafting. King Bloodhammer, if you want, you can just get out of event keys. I guess maybe Infernus. Actually, yeah, there actually is one thing worth crafting. This is generally one of the first few crafts that you would go for. Has really high damage output. Oddly enough, if you happen to have Obsidius, has really good synergy with Obsidius as well. And it has the best burn in the game, being able to burn all enemies on 4 times matches or any extra turn match. And it also gets to summon a Firestorm in combination with a board clear, which is one of the only few troops, if not the only troop, that basically has a board clear in combination with a storm attached to a troop, which ends up saving you in a whole slot of having to have a storm separately or something else like that. So it tends to be used for pretty good value for that combination that it has, a board clear into a storm. But actually, Mountain Crusher is one of the other big ones that has it. But there's very few options that have like a viable board clear into a storm, and Infernus is one of those that have both in combination on one single troop, as well as having some damage attached to it, which is something that Mountain Crusher doesn't even have associated with it. Anyways, I actually just noticed I somewhat skipped over this, but event objectives for the week. We have 10% to all Drag Zoom, 10% to all constructs, so definitely viable to use Drag Zoom constructs this week, as well as constructs in general. 400 gold for whenever we use the Effigy in PvP or Explore. Probably want to use it in Explore most likely. I'll be showing a team for that real quick, though you can just plop it onto anything and it would work. And other than that, we just have to do a bunch of PvP in order to get all the various event objectives for the week. Definitely advise doing it because 120 gems are the final reward this week, so quite a hefty amount of gems to get from that. Anyways, let's go over a few teams real quick. I guess we'll start with the Explore team. Just real quick. So if you want to go get some gold, of course, just any Explorer, doesn't really matter wherever you need to go farm trait stones. And you can do something like this. Doesn't have to be like this, but I figured I'd do something slightly cheaper and not the normal thing that we would normally show. But all we have to do here, this also ends up using a new weapon. We just do that. Ideally, we'd get full mana onto our first slot. First time I think that hasn't happened. It only needs 7. Actually surprised it didn't get all the way. But we just throw this down, get our kill, Gargoyle, kill the rest, and that should be able to wipe pretty much every single time. By just using that Gargoyle, and then rinse and repeat, and you keep getting about 1,000 gold per battle like this. And we end up getting a Celestial too. Celestials do have a higher chance of dropping an Explorer, and we were able to pull one immediately. Anyways, let's go over a few of the other PvP teams real quick. I think I have, 2 of them here? Yeah, 2 of them here. So one of them is just a cheap Cursed Stun for early game, and the other one is trying to use this weapon viably. Stone Slicer is a pretty interesting weapon, to say the least. It feeds mana into itself while being able to feed into some pretty decent constructs. Constructs not necessarily the absolute best typing in the game. However, it does have all the Guardian troops. It does have Gargoyle and a few other viable options mixed within. So it's not horrible. It does look like we're about to get completely obliterated here, though, if we don't get lucky in a moment. Let's see. I'm just going to have to poke him and just hope he goes for a skull or something. I'm not sure we're going to have enough damage to do anything there. Okay, good. We did get an Entangle, duh. This thing does have Entangle on Skull as well as having 50% reduction. Actually, everything on this team other than our hero has 50% reduction. It's a really common trait to have on constructs. It's something that they have quite a hefty amount of. He's going to Skull Spam us there. It's not really going to do much damage because he entangles, so that's pretty fortunate. So he's not really going to kill us out. We'll get some damage there. That does hit through Submerge, unfortunately. Let's see. We'll go for, I guess, a second Gargoyle just to make sure he doesn't get more spam. And we'll probably kill out his Mythic. And that should pretty much be a match. We get our Gargoyles up, just keep spamming those, and pretty much as simple as that. So we'll go to that, get one Gargoyle down so we don't only have to deal with one troop now, and just make sure he doesn't heal it. If we really had to, we can go Entangle it. We also have a entangle spam option. If we end up using this on a bunch of greens, we can entangle literally his entire team to negate out skull reduction if our 50% reductions aren't enough. And yeah, it ends up working out pretty decently. That's pretty much how that premise works if you're going to bother using that for like PvP. That's also a somewhat mid-range team, even though I showed the other one as like the cheap team. This one's actually pretty cheap too, since every single thing you get here is you pretty much just automatically get. This is an ultra rare that you can easily get just by throwing some shards at the Primal Rift. This is a epic that you get very easily just by throwing some shards at Hall of Guardians. And this is the weapon that you can either get in Soulforge this week or with gems. Other than that, here's a cheap Curse stun team. Again, every single thing here is really cheap and is probably one of the more viable options to Curse stun in the game. It's Arcane Golem, which is another one of these. You might notice like a lot of these are kind of the same theme of troop. There's one for almost every single stats effect now, and they do keep going with that, and now there's one for Curse. It's a whole premise of troop, and pretty much every single one of these constructs, for the most part, are one of those kind of mechanics. The other one I just showed was Entangle option. This is the Deathmark option. This is the Stun option. This is the Curse option. There's a lot of them, and every single one of them is actually pretty viable as far as their effects are concerned. But basically, I'm just running this with the Deathmark, Stun, and Curse option, so that we can both Curse and Stun them to disable all traits, on top of the fact that we can also Deathmark them. And we're using this up front so we can stack up a bunch of armor and attack. And if it happens to die, we have this thing, which will be able to go and stack a bunch of attack to kill everything out with. So right here, we'll just go and try getting a kill. That does give us 5 extra glory. I guess right now, since we don't have an Entangle option this time around, I should probably kill his first 2 slots. I want to hit Rope Dart, but I don't think we're going to go for it right now. This does get death marks based on skull, so we can get a double death mark right now if we want. What do you actually do it on? Yellow, I believe? Yes, yellow. So we could do a triple stun. None of them seem to have immunity, so we're not actually going to necessarily need that curse option this time around. So I guess we'll just go for some yellows. I kind of want to take it up here just to try to go for a skull there. Didn't actually get it. We can go for that skull, which will be enough to kill. Could try boost ratio in this guy soon. We're only going to get one single one off of it, but I guess it's still worth it. I'll end up getting some of his brown back by doing that as well. And we're mainly just going to want to take blues to keep getting that weapon back every single time. And just feed him back that way with all of our mana. Do we have any good move here? Looks like no. So we'll just try for the sky blue. Did not end up getting it. Take our brown from over here, which will give him full mana from that. We can then go stack up his attack a little bit more, and it gives us a bunch of skulls to do so with if we so choose. We'll take that so we can go do a curse option if we want as well. Let's see. Do we have a drop skull here? Does not look like it. I don't think I can do any explosion that will drop those into each other. So I'm just going to probably have to take a skull here in a way that he doesn't get any value out of it for a follow-up. We'll then go and just get a little bit more attack. Before we do, let me just kill that out just so we don't have to deal with skull spam at all, since we don't have Entangle this time around. We can then go for... well, we can use Curse right here. Curse does get rid of Bless. So even though we can't stun him or anything right now, we can use a Curse to try to get rid of that. And he ends up doing that based on purple. So as long as we hit 2 purples here, it will end up removing all of his... or we'll Curse that one, and it negates out his Bless that he has. So now we can go stun him if we so choose. But we'll go for a Death Mark so we can go and try killing him out that way. I'll just take this double skull right over there, get a bit of attack buff, and hopefully those will randomly end up killing it. He doesn't end up entangling us there, so we won't have as much of attack. So at this point, we kind of do have to go and kill him out, either off of our weapon or off of those death marks right now, as he's not leaving us with much of a option otherwise. I'll just take that for now. That one dies off a death mark, as you can see. This guy, unfortunately, does not have death mark on him anymore. So we are going to need to go get some mana to go get that back up, and we simply feed it right into it. This we will probably just go and explode into it, unless he gives us an option. But then again, never mind, he gives us an option, so we can just go with that. Well, with it into his skull. But let's see, do we need to go stun him? I guess we'll go stun him real quick just to make sure he can't do anything. As long as we hit at least 1 yellow, that will get him disabled. So we'll try it over there, get our 1 stun. And now we just need a skull into any instance of damage at this point. And that 1 instance of damage is likely just going to have to be off a skull unless we can get the ability of this weapon up with another blue surge. Which is going to be the only way we could really get it. Unfortunately, that explosion kind of got rid of the other skull we needed there. Of course, he's about to rope dart us, so whatever he ends up moving will have 0 attack in first. Nothing on this team happens to have immune to that. So I guess we could go and throw a death mark on him and just hope that that is enough to kill him, just randomly. That is a 10% chance per turn. We can put a curse on there to make it last even longer. Unfortunately, I don't think in this context we'll be able to get a curse on in time, but if we can get a little bit more brown in there, never mind, we don't even need it. And as you can see, we get a double death mark on the kills. Not necessarily the way I wanted to roll it down, but something really cheap that you can end up running in early game with it. But yeah, as far as teams are concerned with this new weapon, I am a big fan of this team right here. It's a great mid-range team, possibly even early game team, depending on how you look at it. Everything here is easy to get, aside from the weapon, but this week the weapon's pretty easy. You know, after the fact, you won't be able to get this weapon, so definitely make sure to get this weapon this week. Not the greatest team in the game, but yeah, green golem, double gargoyle into this stone slicer. And depending on faction events, you could possibly even bring this into factions too. You would use something in first slot, double gargoyle with stone slicer. That would be viable in quite a few factions out there, at least for the lower levels. So could be a viable team to start throwing down for that if you didn't already have other options for early game and mid game to run down those lower level areas. But anyways, guys, I'll wrap it up for this video. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone.